Welcome to Esports Odyssey, a podcast dedicated to making esports simpler by breaking it down and learning from the best. On this show, we talk to successful people within the esports ecosystem to see what sets them apart from the rest of us. Today I'm here with Toby.
Hello.
You can see him waving. He's been a long-term, especially PUBG commentator. I think that's probably what people know you from the most. You've started off, as I know, in CS:GO, and I think you've probably done a couple of other FPSs as well. So we'll get into that a little bit later. You're a commentator. You're an analyst. You're signed with Code Red. My friends at Code Red, great guys over there. You're a Twitch partner. You do a lot of streaming yourself too?
Yes, correct.
So you do it all. You're a content creator, commentator, analyst, Twitch streamer, everything.
Yeah, most recently tournament, I guess, organizer too. So yeah, I do a bit of everything in the esports world.
Awesome. And you've already worked with a lot of big organizers like ESL, Starletter, PGL, GLL.
All of them.
You name them.
Yes.
Cool. So let's actually go a little bit further back. Mm-hmm. I want to start at what got you into video games in the first place in your childhood. When was that? What was the first game?
I think, and now I don't know what this is called in English. I should look that up. But you know the place you go to after school when you're a kid, but before your parents come to pick you up? Like where you can hang out and play with all your friends and
like the kindergarten.
Yeah, I guess maybe is that what it's called? I don't know, but it's like when you're done with school and then you go there before you get picked up by your parents. Either way, you guys watching this will know exactly what I'm talking about. So when we were there, you know what? I grew up in an age where 1 hour of gaming, 1 hour outside, either that or literally just 1 hour gaming in a day. Everything else had to be playing with other stuff because gaming is bad for you. And we all, of course, know that to be true. So we had this, I guess it was a NES or Amiga, just one on like in this place, and you had this waiting list. You had to go sign up with the teachers there. You'd be put on the waiting list, and then you knew you had like a half hour from 3 till 3:30, where this was your time to game. And not only would you be the one gaming, but because everybody else wanted to game as well, they would stand behind you and watch because they were waiting for it to be their turn. So you were already getting into the kind of competitive gaming thing then. And you would always play on the save of... So if you were playing Prince of Persia, some of all these really old games, you would be continuing the save of the person who had played before you. So it was like all of us in this child gang would work together to complete different games and taking turns when it was our turn. So that was probably my big. And we're talking like 7-8 years old here. So that was like my very intro to it.
Must have been rough if someone before you did really well and then you let them down by losing all the lives.
Exactly. Yeah. Because that was back in the day as well, where you couldn't just microtransaction your way across a level, and when you died, you died. There was an actual game over, right? So yeah, that was probably my very first video game experience. But in terms of like computer and more, as we know now, video games, it's just going to the net cafes after school and I think the same intro that most other people had to video games these days.
So what was your first online video game then?
I think it must have been Counter-Strike. Then it must have been 1.5, because I remember going to a net cafe where we had to make our very it was just before Steam, so we would go and play that, and then also Battlefield 1942. I think those two must have been at least the two that I remember to have played the most. I played a lot of Vanilla WoW as well, and now I of course don't know the exact timeline, but I feel like Vanilla WoW was after 1942.
I think there's a lot of people in esports that were very, very hardcore into World of Warcraft.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I grinded my butt off in WoW Like I was a 14-year-old raid leader back in the day. That's trying to get 40 people onto Ventrilo to talk and clear an Noxious layer. As a 14-year-old, you learn your English. Like you improve that really fast.
That makes sense. Do you think you learned a lot from that?
100%, 100%. My you learn. It's like with driving, right? They always tell you learn more in your first day when you're done with driving school, where you have to sit in the car on your own and try and drive, then where that's where you really put everything together that you learned in your driving classes, right? And I feel like the same with English. All the things that I learned in school just really that was my practice, and then when I went to to play video games and whatnot, that was my those were the matches, kind of. That's where I got to use it.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So you did start though with Counter-Strike 1.6.
Yes.
And back then, did you compete or?
No, not at all. We competed at like the local LAN cafes, but that was really it. There was nothing, no prize money, no nothing. It was just me and school friends, and we were never playing like the actual maps. We were always playing what is it called, FY, Ice World and Pool Day and Scouts and Knives, and we always loved putting the gravity on maximum, so you would fly up in the air and then put it at minus, so you would just fall down and die. Whoever had like the server host power, he would always be the one that just ran around and killed everyone with that. So we were just having fun.
You know, I remember in those days when we were just smaller groups of people, and we weren't like 8 people or 10 people. We were maybe 5, right? We'd usually play stupid stuff like 1v4 on Assault. Right.
Exactly.
And the one person that CT is playing on their own, that's T is playing on their own, trying to defend the hostages. Yeah.
The amount of times I've tried to jump down from that roof and get into the tunnel. Yep.
So outside of gaming, outside of CS and World of Warcraft, what other kinds of hobbies did you have growing up?
A lot of sport. I'm the kind of kid that was always pretty decent at different sports, but I never really committed to one. So I did a lot of handball, a lot of football, or soccer, whatever you want to call it. Badminton, I played a little. So I was just all around. I just loved doing sports. And then I've always, for my entire life, played music as well.
Oh,
yep.
Is that why there's a guitar in the background?
That's very, yep. That I guess that reveals that secret. No, it's I've always loved music. Growing up, and still do. I used to study music as well, so yeah.
So when you were playing sports, did you ever do anything competitive there? Did you ever? Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, I was for a very, very short while assigned to the Danish national snowboard team, and I was trying to qualify for the Winter Olympics in Sochi. So yes, I did that, and then I went to a lot of tryouts for the Danish American football national team, and when I got on, but as I don't know if you call it reserve player, but so I never actually got to play any matches with them, but was also really competitive in that. In handball and football, the ones that are actually big sports in Denmark, I was never. I mean, I never committed enough to actually get to a high level.
Makes sense. So you were a gamer at a young age. You were already competitive at a young age, which I think a lot of people in the industry have that in common. What was the point at which you wanted to start commentating, and what was kind of what got you into this position in the first place?
It's kind of funny because I think most people, they kind of had a smooth transition from one thing into their esports career, wherever they may be in that now. I actually have one specific evening that got me into starting. At least I can put down what got me started to one specific day, and it was I had just moved to my own apartment. And the first thing you do when you move in, you barely have any chairs. Your bed is made out of, I don't even know. I mean, it's just you didn't have anything in your apartment, so there's plenty of room for setting up a LAN event. Because the first thing you do when you move to your first apartment is to make sure there's a good internet connection, obviously. So me and 4 friends, we get together in my place. One of them had to literally play Counter-Strike sitting on a milk what do you call milk box, right? that was my apartment at the time, and we always had this thing when we went out partying and stuff where we tended to dare each other to do different things. And I have a thing like if someone comes to me and go, "Oh, Toby, you can't even do that. Like, why are you mad about it? You can't even do it better." Then something inside me just triggers, and I go, "Yes, I can." And so this evening, one of my friends that were there, he had to play in a Counter-Strike tournament. And I mean, he wasn't good. It was a super amateur thing. But we thought it would be fun if he plays it and we sit on Twitch and watch it. I'd watched some League of Legends as well before that, but never really thought of myself as getting into it. I was just fascinated by it. And he's playing, and there was these two casters. It was a Danish tournament, and one of them stuttered a lot, and I think it was also his first time casting. The other guy was pretty good, but one of them stuttered, and I just got so frustrated by it, because if there's one thing I feel like if you're trying to be a play-by-play caster that you can't do is not to be able to, talk. He had a pretty massive stutter. Also, of course, he was really nervous. So I say at some point, this caster is really not very good. I'm sure I could do a better job than him. And then one of the guys just, like, we lock eyes, and he goes, "Toby, you can't even do that." And I'm like, and then I was like, you know what? Yes, I can. So I had done theater, I'd done some musical stuff prior to that, and I was like, you know what? I have stage presence. I can speak English pretty fast. I know what I'm talking about. I've played Counter-Strike before. How hard can it be? So I went on the Twitch chat as we were sitting there watching it, and my friend's team, they got completely destroyed. We just had fun about it. And then I write, "Is there a bot in the chat?" Yes, there was. "Hey, I would like to apply to become a caster, or at least give it a try. Who can I talk to?" And then the very next day, they had the same amateur league. I think they also clearly figured out that the stuttering guy wasn't a good fit. So it's like, if you want to give it a shot, just, come tomorrow. And we'll see how it's going to work. And that was like, sure thing. And within 2 months, I was casting their, at the time, their top division. So that's really what got me into casting one evening with my friends.
Wow. Yeah. So if I was a news editor right now and I was writing an article about you, the headline would be, "Built a career on a dare."
I guess so. Essentially, yeah. That's at least that's what I can never. We can never know if I would have gotten or given it a try had that not been the case. But that's the very. I guess I can give a lot of my credit to my friend who dared me to try and cast the video game.
Maybe he should have thought bigger. Maybe he should have dared you to build a spaceship.
Yeah, you can never be a billionaire. Oh, yes, I can. Yeah, maybe you should have. Also, I feel like we should stop this dare thing right now so you don't start daring me into doing different things.
It's already working.
Building a strategy. How can we use him this best way possible? Yeah, that's right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how did it go from there? What was the next step? So you started commentating this amateur league.
Yes, I started doing Counter-Strike in Danish, and very quickly got to my first. It was a Danish, broadcast team that worked with Esports Denmark. And Esports Denmark does a lot with Copenhagen Games, and they have different events going on in Denmark throughout the year. So they were well connected to different LAN events and whatnot in Denmark. So despite my very minimal experience at casting, I actually got through to cast some pretty big teams at the time. That was really, really interesting, getting to Copenhagen Games, sitting at like a LAN event. We were doing the B stream, so we weren't like connected with the main stage and all that. We were just sitting in the back doing all the other games, but there were big teams playing. It was at the time where Big or BIG, they were upsetting a lot of teams. Tapson was out there doing crazy things. So just like watching games and seeing in the VODs afterwards that you had Freakazoid and you had the device and some of all these now massive guys that were in the chat at the time, and damn, these guys were actually, they probably had me muted, but they were actually watching the game that I was part of broadcasting. That was a pretty big thing. So that got me even more into wanting to do more. And then I did work with them for a while, and then, one guy introduced me to PUBG and said, "Hey, Toby, you should give it a go." We were going to a LAN event for a weekend, and all the other guys that were going had downloaded PUBG, like early access at the time, and Toby, get it. I was like, sure, we'll try it. And you know how it is, early access games, they always have their bugs that you can run through walls and I don't know what not. So we were just having a lot of fun with the game at the time, being in a really bad state and running around doing weird things. And then it was like over time, I just started playing, but I found it really really interesting that there was such a deep analytical aspect to it, like with your rotations and the circles closing in, and should we play this building or that building? From my competitive mindset and my, I guess sometimes also overly analytical mindset, everything just seemed to fit together with like a battle royale title. So the more I started playing PUBG, the more I it's not that I didn't like Counter-Strike, it's just my passion for Counter-Strike kind of fell as my passion for PUBG rose. And then every time I was casting those Counter-Strike events that I was still casting, I just didn't feel like I could give it, like from a casting perspective. Every time I went woohoo, it wasn't, I didn't feel the woohoo the same way that I tried to, not fake it, but the same way that I tried to make it come across. I just didn't have the passion for Counter-Strike anymore. So at that time I figured I wanted to go do a lot more with PUBG.
So what was your career outside of esports looking like at that time? What was going on in your life?
Well, I mean, I had just moved to Copenhagen. I had a part-time job in a cafe that then became working in a restaurant. So it was never really a full-time career of mine. We would go to these different events we had. I mean, for Counter-Strike, we had one, I think, a weekly thing every Wednesday, I believe it was. So it wasn't that it was taking up all my time and I was fully committed to it at that point. It was just, it was fun. I had a lot of fun doing it. And it was like, some people, they like to do their hangouts with their friends once a week where they go play some football, or if they collect magic cards, they go play with them, or whatever it may be. And that was kind of my side hobby. The fact that I got paid, I mean, it was by no means enough to make a living, but I got my pocket change for a month. I could go to the movies once or twice a month extra for the amount of money that I made. So it was it started out, I mean, as with most other things, started out just as a hobby and me finding it really interesting to actually get a foot inside that esports world.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what was the point? What was sort of the breaking point at which you knew I want to turn this into a career, or I can turn this into a career?
So right in the beginning, PUBG, because I was lucky to kind of get my foot in, not at the very start, because there had been some events before I got in, but my first ever casting, I was sitting and watching and playing. Again, I was still, all the stuff that I did in terms of casting PUBG was in Danish tournaments, or at least Nordic. So I didn't really know the scene. I didn't know anything, and then a friend of mine, a streamer at the time, John, he reached out to me saying, Toby, there is this PUBG qualifier going on right now in English. And he had been sitting and watching D-Man, Lee D-Man Smith, casting some of the qualifiers for this tournament. And D-Man had been like, hey, I could use another caster, because we have, I don't know what it was, like 32 groups, because it was massive at the time, right? So there was 1 billion groups being played. And apparently, IEM, who I think were the tournament organizers of that event, they were saying, well, if you want to cast this event as a community guy, why not give it a shot? And I had only casted at that time PUBG in Danish. So I was kind of interested in trying to get a little bit of a English show reel in, or just build up my resume so I could start reaching out to some of the tournament organizers at the time. And so I got my foot inside there. And the first game I cast, people in chat go crazy. They spam in all these different different languages. I think I had 200 followers on Twitch at the time. So very small channel, just me doing my basic overlay things. And the very first message that I got that day was, hey, are you casting this group? I don't remember the letter, but I was casting a specific group, and I said, yes, that's my group. And then he just goes, watch this. And then I was like, oh, okay. And then nothing happens for like a minute, and I kind of forgot about it. And then you get like that really loud host alert sound, because whoever fiddles with host alerts, because I never got hosted when I was in the beginning of my streaming. I get 3 hosts back to back, one of them with 2,000 viewers, one of them with 6,000 viewers, and one of them with 7,000 viewers. And all of a sudden, little Toby is sitting on a channel with 17,000 viewers. I was the second most viewed channel on Twitch in PUBG with 200 followers, no mods and nothing. And then it turns out that the lobby that I was casting had Groupie, which was the present day Navi team. They had Team Spirit, which has, at least in PUBG, a massive following. And it was just like a cluster of the top tier CIS teams that were all in the same group. So within a second, my entire chat just starts spamming in like Russian. And I was like, oh no, I don't understand anything. and then the first thing I do, of course, is follow remote, boop, activate it. And then that entire qualifier, I just kind of started just following those teams, because now these CIS guys, they knew, and they found it hilarious that I couldn't pronounce the team names and everything. It was just fun.
We'd like to thank our partners at Elgato, without whom this podcast wouldn't be possible. They provided much of the equipment used for all of our recording sessions. Elgato is the leading provider of hardware and software for content creators, leveraging decades of experience to develop widely accessible products that empower all creators to produce high-quality, professional content. Elgato has provided us with a reliable 4K 60 Pro capture card, professional keylight lighting, and a customizable stream deck, enabling us to pull off pretty much anything we can think of. Head over to elgato.com to see their full product line.
It was just good fun, and I rose from those 200 followers to I think 2,500 in over a weekend. And I was like, holy moly, is there such a big following in this game? And I think that's what really, like, that's where it triggered for me. I said, Toby, if you actually commit yourself to this, there might just be a way that you can kind of get going.
Yeah. And there was
clearly.
So
clearly.
So what was the way? What was your next step?
For me, I work more than what's probably healthy for me. Like when I find something I'm passionate about, I'm the guy that'll take 2 hours of sleep. If it's like, I'd rather not be sleeping, even if I'm sleepy, if it's something that I'm really passionate about. I just work my butt off. And I figured, okay, so clearly I don't have the money to just go full-time streamer right now, because there's also not that many events that I can cover every single day. So I figured I'm just gonna work my butt off over, it was like, I think it was IEM Katowice qualifiers, it was in November. And you know, always in Christmas, when you live in the capital of your country, there's always like Christmas jobs that you can get. So I worked a night shift at a hotel where I would meet at, I think my working hours were from 9 in the evening to 8 in the morning. So I would do that, and then I would go from there straight to another job where I'd be serving porridge in like a restaurant in Copenhagen from 10 to 2. So I would have two, I mean, I guess not full-time jobs, but one full-time job and a almost full-time job. And then I'd go home, I'd go to sleep at 3 p.m., wake up at 8 p.m., and then I'd go to work in the hotel again. I did that every day for 2 months. And I did that because then I could say, great, now I've made enough money that over these next 2 months, I can say yes to every casting gig. Because, I mean, a lot of it wasn't paid at the time, right? So I can literally, because the thing was, I wanted, of course, I mean, everybody wants to go to those big events and whatnot. So I would get surpassed, obviously. I had barely even made a Twitter profile yet. And you had some of these really big, famous casters that came in and started doing PUBG events at the time. And I was like, how am I ever going to compete with them? Fact is, I couldn't. so I figured, okay, and also why would they ever pick me? Like, they don't know who I am, I have no following, I have no showreel. Why would a tournament organizer pick me over this guy who might not be the best PUBG caster, but they have massive experience in casting and have done all these big events in other games before? So I figured, okay, now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna force them to know who I am. That was my fault. I'm gonna force them to know who I am. And what I did was I took those 2 months that I had saved money up enough for to be able to pay my rent and all that stuff, because I worked the 2 jobs. And then I just quit my jobs and said, for the next 2 months, I am going to say yes to every single casting gig that I can find within PUBG. And I think by the start of month number 2, I was casting, like actively sitting and casting over 36 hours a week. So it's like a full-time job in terms of literally just casting. We were talking without breaks, without anything. I was casting 6 days a week, and it was like EU and NA for the most part, every day. So I would be casting like a lot of hours. And I got to know all the teams that participated in all the different tournaments really well. So I got a lot of insights on the team. And obviously my Twitch channel and like people started to figuring out who, like, and I've talked to people since then, and like and we never knew who you were. It's like, who the fuck is this Toby guy who's casting everything all of a sudden? People were so confused by it because I was literally every single tournament there was, I would be the one to do the B stream or like awesome PUBG Online GLL. I was always the one. I would never get the big gig, like the main channel where you had your dedicated observers and your production team. I would be the one that sat down and had to do everything on my own. So that's also how I learned to do like casting and observing, which is something I like to praise myself on being pretty good at. Doing both of those things at the same time, because it is pretty difficult. But that's how I got to learn it. I was forced to learn it. Toby, they have given you a platform. This is where you can show them what you're worth, and that's, I guess, how I managed to kind of get my foot in the door.
Got it. And then, so that's sort of the path that led you to the breaking point. But then, what was the actual breaking point? What was the moment where you knew you made it?
After those 2 months, I mean, I should say within those 2 months, I managed to get my channel partnered. Obviously, I mean, I guess the numbers are not faked a little, but when I streamed myself, I would have 15 to 20 viewers, and when I did the tournaments, I would have 1,000. So the numbers were a little uneven, and I remember talking to the Twitch staff at the time, like, Toby, we can see your numbers vary a lot. I was like, yeah, but I do a lot of tournaments and stuff. And they were like, okay, you know what, fair enough. We'll give this guy a shot. And then I got partnered, and of course, then you can start making some revenue on casting and viewership and subscriptions and all that stuff. And that was really what kind of got my foot in. And then I remember my first time casting a LAN, not a LAN event, but like I was flown to Stockholm to cast for GLL. That was the first time somebody had actually paid I was completely overwhelmed that people would pay my plane ticket and a hotel to go to another country just to sit in the studio, because I was like, I can just sit and do that from home. That's what I've been doing this entire month up to now, right? But I would make sense for a LAN event, but I was like, these guys are paying me to just sit in a room and do what I would be doing from home anyway. And I was completely overwhelmed by the fact that people did such a thing. Casting-wise, I remember it being all right. It was actually, I think, was I working with D-Man then? I don't remember. But I, having only done solo casting before, I constantly talked over my co-casters. I was just so hyped to be there that I had way too much. I acted like I had 6 cups of coffee, which I hadn't. And then when we came in the evening, where I also did have 6 cups of coffee, yeah, I don't know. You don't want to go back and watch that VOD. I don't think so.
You know what? You know what? Throughout, I've been in this industry for 10 years, and throughout all the years, I've seen many commentators come and rise from out of nowhere, right? And it's always beautiful to watch this journey, like you made in PUBG, where it's like, this is an entirely new game, and it feels like esports doesn't even exist. Yeah, and it's like esports growing again to where CSGO is and where League of Legends is today, right?
Exactly.
And there's people like Freak in League of Legends, who's one of the biggest commentators in the game. He's commentating over the LCS in the North America, right? And all of these people I've experienced have these moments at esports tournaments where they're just so excited to be there, to be at this event, and because it's their first time, right? And I think that's actually a good lesson to take away here.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's just so damn exciting to get that first chance.
It really is. And I remember my first LAN event I got to. I mean, I attended a couple of PUBG LAN events before I actually got hired to work one. But I remember going to them, and it was amazing. Like the crowd being there, and it was insane. And I remember when I went to PGI Berlin, which was like at the biggest event, the first real massive global event that was put together by PUBG in 2018. I was so overwhelmed from the very moment, like from the very opening ceremony show they had put together, and the fact that I now knew, like I'd come to know some of the players that were sitting down on that stage playing. Because one thing is you attend a big League of Legends event or something, and you go, oh my god, these guys, it's like watching Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi and all those guys and going, they're so cool, but like they're not human. They're fucking superheroes, you know what I mean? Like they're down there. Like they might as well just been 10 kilometers away. I can never touch them. But now I could I had the same experience in terms of being in a big stadium and watching things, but I was like, oh my god, the guy in that chair, I casted him last week, and the guy over there, I had a podcast interview with him 2 weeks ago. I was like, oh my lord, I'm actually like, even though I wasn't part of the event, I felt like I was part of the community to such an extent that it was also kind of mine, and that was insane.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure you just experience everything in a very different way, right?
Yeah,
Because
for
you're
sure.
actually you're also emotionally attached.
Oh yeah.
And you and the other on the other side, you see the emotions of these people in a much more real way than you would on camera, right? Because you see them backstage, you talk to
Exactly.
them
Exactly.
after their matches, before their matches. You see the nervousness, right, and the disappointment when they lose.
Yeah, yeah, that's a big portion of it too, and it helps me a lot in terms of my casting work. I feel as well to know the players on a personal level, because you can always go, oh yeah, he didn't miss that shot. No, that was so bad. But if you know that the guy's had a really bad day coming into the tournament or whatever, that kind of, not that you want to say, oh yeah, this guy's dog got killed last night. Feels bad, man. Can we get some F's in the chat for the dead dog? You know, I mean, it's just you pay respect to it, but you also know it's just that he must have an off day. You actually know what, like, at least potentially what the reason is that he's underperforming on a given day. You get like a more personal relationship with the players.
Yeah, and I think that in itself is also good insight, and that doesn't just apply to players, right? Commentators obviously have off days too. You're a human. You're a human being.
Sure.
So sometimes people will likely encounter you. They'll watch your content and they'll be like, "Oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about." And maybe you're just having an off day, right?
Yes.
So you're just not 100% there.
Or not understanding that I've literally sat and casted 11 hours before this random Twitch guy came into the chat. I'm like, guys, I am burned out. Cut me some slack here.
Exactly. So that's actually a good segue, because I want to talk about what was the most difficult thing for you to overcome. What was the biggest hurdle in your career in esports?
In terms of actual casting, I think my biggest hurdle must have been the whole like transitioning from solo casting, because in PUBG there's something happening all the time. There's always something you can talk about, because I mean you have 16 teams on the same map, right? So at that time I think it was actually 20, but that it doesn't change the fact that there's a lot going on. So making room, or like not realizing that you don't have to be the one that explains everything, but make it a conversation instead. I think that was really difficult in the start, because I was so hyped, obviously, and I knew a lot about the game, because I had spent so much time casting it, and I wanted to always tell people stuff. So if I talked about something, then I throw it over to the other caster, and he starts talking about something else, or he just observes something else than what I would be looking at the time. I would get not frustrated, but I would just be annoyed that, but I wanted to talk about this stuff, and then kind of trying to force the subject back, which is a really bad idea. So I learned over time that it's a conversation, and yeah, you have to make room for each other. I think that was the most difficult thing in terms of casting. In terms of the overall esports world, I think, I mean, it might actually put, like, you can put it together with the other thing, but thinking twice before tweeting stuff, I think that's a good lesson to learn. Because social media, I mean, I didn't know anything about. Yes, I had a Facebook profile where I would talk to my friends and whatnot, but your on-screen appearance also is your on-screen appearance on your social media platform, and I did not know that when I first came in. I was just like, if I thought someone was stupid, I would tweet out, "This guy's stupid." You know, I mean, I there was no filter. And that hurt at times, because I think things that I might have tweeted out at some point could potentially have been me not getting certain jobs that I wanted to get. And I just never put the two together. Like, I never thought that my Twitter or social media doings could cause that, because it was just me being opinionated, and sometimes people, that just don't want to hear your opinion about things.
Yeah. I think that's good advice. You know, and that doesn't only go for people in the public eye either nowadays. There's there's definitely certain things you should not be sharing on social media.
Yes, I learned that the hard way.
So when it comes to casting, in particular, what is something that was maybe really difficult for you to learn other than that, and what was there ever a point where it kind of made click, and you felt like from one day to another you were so much better because you improved in one area?
I think not rambling. Or let's put it this way, not rambling, I think, is a tricky thing because you, especially if you're new to casting, you'll get nervous and you'll have like, sometimes you force yourself into a tongue twister situation where no matter how much you have this point and it's so perfect and it's amazing, you take too long to kind of get it out there. You can stumble over words. You can go a couple of times, and that moment has passed. Now, this other guy just blew up a car with 4 people in it, and you need to go to that instead. Yeah. So being able to shorten down, like, just make things really concise. Really be able, especially in terms of like play by play, and even more so in battle royale games. Like not rambling, I think is extremely important and extremely difficult not to do. That was probably my toughest thing, and it wasn't from one day to another, but it was just over time. I could feel that my censure struck. What do you say? You're already now. You can see right there. It was me messing up, and I have to just pass on, right?
Yeah.
Structuring your sentences naturally, so you don't have to sit and think about how you want to say things, but it just comes out in the way that it's supposed to. Yeah. That is something that took me a good while to master. Also, English is not my first language, right? So even though I speak it well, there are some different ways to go about it, and I think that was probably my toughest task, is to be able to give across a lot of information, but in a short amount of time.
Okay. So other than that, if you had to give any aspiring commentators sort of your top 3 pieces of advice regarding, what to do or what not to do when commentating, we have don't ramble, right?
Yes.
What are other two things that you would give them as homework?
I think them, and this is gonna sound so cliche, but honestly, be yourself. You see all these casters, and some will lower their compression on their mixer to make it sound real cool, and you have this action-packed caster voice, yeah, you know what I mean? And I'm just no. If your voice cracks every now and again, let that freaking voice crack. If you have a weird way of saying certain things, if it's incorrect and people don't understand you, fair enough, you probably gotta work on it. But be yourself. We see, and I don't know if that's casting in general, but if you go to sports commentators like TV sports, oftentimes I cannot tell them apart. I could watch 2 different football games with 2 different broadcast channels playing at the exact same time, and I would not know who is who. I would think it was the same 2 guys that had clones in the other place, and I think that's so unfortunate, because not only do I want to, as a viewer, I want to watch the sport, obviously. I want to see the games and all the amazing things being done by the players. But the personality of the commentators also brings so much to the broadcast, right? So, and that's what I feel like people have complimented me for is, but Toby, you're just different. And that's, that can be a good and a bad thing, but they just, I think the thing I'm being told so much is they can't really put words on it usually, but Toby, you just do things a little different than what other casters do. And I think it's me laughing my butt off. Or if someone misses a spray, I'm not gonna go, oh, I should say, oh, that was unfortunate, he will get it next time. I'm gonna go, that guy just whiffed a shot, he sucks, you can say that with a laugh, and when people know you they know you're not actually criticizing the guy, because you know he's amazing, and maybe 2 minutes later you'll be complimenting him. But just be yourself. Take what it is that makes you different and bring it to your casting. Don't try and clone what other people do, because then why would they pick you if you're just a less famous, less known version of the guy they already have that's famous? So be yourself.
You know what? And that's another great segue right there. We like to ask, what is the key value that people bring to an event? And I guess in your case that would probably be the fact that you just bring in your own personality, right?
Yeah, that alongside with, as I said earlier, probably working more than what's healthy for me. If I don't feel like I've ever been hired to an event. At least maybe I have, and the TOs just been very quiet by it. I've never been to an event where the TOs haven't been pleasantly surprised. They will hire you for an event and expect a certain, we've seen him in this VOD, we've seen him do this and that before. And then they make an expectation of what do we expect this person to deliver at our event. And I've just, everything that I've done, I feel like at least for the most part, people have come up to me afterwards, like the TOs or whoever my spokesperson at the event has been, and been like, Toby, you that was really, really good. I'm like, thank you. That I appreciate it. I mean, the fact that they come up and say that to me means that my hard work and dedication has A, paid off, and B, probably meant that I'll get hired next time too. So yeah, I mean, being myself alongside with being dedicated and like sometimes way too perfectionistic. Because I want you to, whichever person you meet backstage or as a fan, come and... I would hate to sit and watch a show where you see someone casting and then you think he's amazing, and then when you go to meet him in person, he's a whole other person. As a caster, I want to be the same guy as... I don't want to take on a persona or something. I can see how that's funny and how that can be a great thing, but for me, whenever you meet me on the street, I want me to be the same guy as the one you saw casting last week.
Right.
Yeah.
Except probably a little less politically correct or appropriate.
Yes, I might swear more in person than I would on camera. True. And I would probably also be more open to discuss things I wouldn't discuss on air. But yeah, for the most part, I would be the exact same guy.
That's good.
Yeah.
I wanna go to challenges. For you personally, what do you feel are the biggest challenges you're facing right now as, a full-time sort of freelance commentator in the esports industry?
I mean, obviously, a big thing. I mean, can't really hide the elephant in the room with the corona and a lot of events being canceled. That's a massive thing. But that's not just me facing that. That's literally everyone. A lot of the big LAN events are being canceled, and of course, that's unfortunate. That does mean that some other events are opened up, and I had the pleasure of starting my own tournament because of that. Everyone, they went around and saying, now we don't get events and this and that, and it's so sad. Why don't we get an event? Why does no one make an event? And I was like, guys, why don't we just make our own event? I mean, why don't we just make our own? It's not like it's that difficult a thing to do. The game is already there. We're just gotta be fortunate and find somebody who will help us execute it. So that was one way for me to get around that. But I feel like one of the big challenges, and a challenge that you might not ever really talk about as a caster, or something that I didn't know would become a thing when I first got into casting, was how much, I mean, and it's different from person to person, but at least for me, how much your social life gets changed up. Because the fact that I isolate myself to sitting here in front of a computer by myself and decide to work as much as I have done, which I need to do in order to get to where I've come now, that means you don't go out and hang out with friends. I mean, your Friday, your Saturday, your Sunday, which are the big gaming nights, they will be you sitting at home in front of a PC talking. And that, I mean, I'll be honest and admit, I'm probably, before I started casting, I maybe hung out with like 15, 20 friends not on the daily, but I had like 15, 20 people that I could go, hey buddy, you want to go to the park and whatever? And they would be like, yeah, what's up? I probably talked to 2 of them now, and that's just 2.5 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. So, of course, I mean, everyone has different things going on in their life, and this could have happened in a lot of other situations too, but it is a lot of time that you need to, at least for my sake, I have needed to dedicate in order to get to where I am, which also takes a toll. And also, if you're in a relationship, I mean, if you live with someone that you love, having to sit up, if you're doing NA stuff, hey honey, I'm gonna be I know you have to get up for work at 6 in the morning, but I'm gonna be casting and shouting in this room next to you from 1 a.m. to 4 a.m. Try and sleeping anyway. I mean, it's so that there's a lot of things that you have to kind of work around, and I think that to me has been the biggest challenge, to be your personal life outside of casting, and how much of a toll it can take. Again, people do it differently. It can take on you.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I think it's a big part of this entire industry, especially the sort of live streaming industry, right? Anyone who's if you have any friends that are full-time Twitch streamers, right? Most of them go through the same same sort of thing. So at least as an esports commentator, outside of these current times, you get the chance to get these paid trips out to, not only are they paid trips, but you get paid for those trips.
Yes,
out to events where you get to hang out with some of your friends, right?
And that's the funny thing, because then when I've gone to events, I've been like, this is not, I don't want to say this is what I do it for, but it's just I don't have any, like, no one that I know in person is into esports. Like maybe they have watched LCS once before, or maybe they've seen a big Counter-Strike event, or been to, now that Denmark gets more CSGO, like actual events like Blast Pro. I live right next to a Royal Arena, so that's where they normally do that. So people will have gone and seen events, and they think it's so cool that I do esports. But I mean, they don't live the life that I do. They're just like, oh my god, Toby, it's so cool that you get to fly planes all the time and cast stuff in video games. That must be the dream life. Sure it is, but I can't talk with anyone about it. Like, my entire daily life fluctuates on Discord and Twitter. I don't have any friends that I can go down and say, oh yeah, you like that play from last night? That was so cool. Like, my colleagues, I can't go and hang out with them and have a beer, because they all live in Sweden, Norway, America, Germany, whatever, you name it, right? So I feel that's also kind of tough. But that just makes it so much more appreciative when you then go to those LAN events where you for a weekend or 4 days can go, oh my god, I'm surrounded by people who love what I also love. And it's so amazing that you can just sit and talk esports with them all the time.
And the other bittersweet part of this situation tends to be that if you do travel somewhere, you'll have friends everywhere.
Yeah,
right?
that's true. That is true.
So, you go to Toronto in Canada, you probably know someone there.
There'll always be someone, exactly.
That sort of thing. So, I like that. Let's get back to you personally, and what's next for you? What's next for your career? What's your first off? What's your big dream? Is there something that you want to achieve that you haven't yet?
I realistically, given that, I mean, I don't know if I can say I'm new to casting, because I don't know how long other casters have casted for. But I got my foot in the door, as we talked about earlier, in like mid 17. I did the Danish casting stuff from like end 16 to mid 17, and then I got like my, I guess, English casting journey started, and so that's just 2.5 years ago, a little more than that maybe. Which I feel like is not a very long time. I mean, who can go if you worked at like a big corporation job, you'd still be the busboy that brought coffee for everyone 2.5 years later, right? You wouldn't actually be able to do stuff and have a saying in things. So I feel like I've already done much more than what I ever assumed to be able to accomplish in this time span. But then again, I also had no idea what I was going into. I didn't know anyone. It was just me literally DMing people and saying, hi, you don't know who I am, can I cast your tournament? Like, I didn't have a network. I didn't know a single person in esports when I first started, right? So I've had a lot of help with that all the way through. So in terms of what's next, obviously with Valorant coming out, that's I mean, I always liked first-person shooters, and I think that's why I got into Counter-Strike in the beginning. And I've really, really enjoyed what I've seen and casted from Valorant now as well, because I feel like it's a little more in depth than Counter-Strike is. I mean, things are as in depth as you make them. You can always overanalyze things. I could take a picture of a blue dot and spend 5 years trying to analyze why that dot is that dot. But I feel like there's more depth to Valorant, or at least potentially, than there is Counter-Strike, let alone the fact that you have those abilities added to the game. It makes for so many more different setups and options within the game that I think are really interesting. So Valorant is for sure a game that I hope to be able to not necessarily transition to, because I don't want to leave PUBG. I think PUBG is absolutely amazing, and I still cast and work a lot of PUBG stuff. But if you ask what's next, that is outside of what I'm doing right now already, then for sure Valorant would be a hope that I can get my foot in there. But then again, we're starting over, right? I don't have my network in Valorant, so it's again going to be Toby, the guy now with 4,000 followers on Twitter, who's up against the 200,000 followers on Twitter guys that you need to try and elbow your way through, or make friends with and get to work with.
Yeah, and this is in a game where I think there's an even bigger push from
all
games.
The regions, everybody wants it.
Everything's converging into this. Yeah.
So that's the situation where I hope my passion for games and what people have seen from me already can maybe make way for me to get into to a title like that, where obviously in terms of following and whatnot, I should not have a chance at all. Then from the people that I've worked with and what people have seen before, maybe that can happen anyway.
Well, I hope it works out for you.
Thank you.
So is there, asking again, is there anything that you haven't achieved that you'd like to achieve?
I mean, I've worked big stadium events, but never as a caster. I've been an analyst. I've been a post-game, more in-depth drawing on the board type weatherman. I've done not hosting, but like some interviewing things. But getting to cast, not necessarily play-by-play, but just getting to be part of the whoa type moment that happens where you can just kind of through your noise-canceling headset hear the insane crowd reactions. I think that would probably be a Toby. You've made it. Like this is the top that you will possibly get, and I think that would probably be my. I don't see it as an end goal because it's not like whenever I've done that, oh now I can quit, now I'm done. I've done it all. That would just be like a new milestone for me to reach. That could be big because I've done, I feel like already a lot of all the other things that I wanted to do, which was get to go to a LAN event, get to fly somewhere and cast, get to fly outside of Europe to cast. I've done these things. It's just the big stadium, like where it all just comes together and a massive overtime finish with a 1v5 clutch, I mean, one of those wild things. That would be sick, but it's not. I mean, I'm really happy with where I'm now. So it's a dream, yes, but it's not an expectation.
That makes sense. We like to end this podcast with a couple of fun questions.
Mm-hmm.
One of them that's always interesting to hear your take on, or our guests' take on, is if you had the choice, would you rather have 5,000 concurrent viewers on your own channel consistently, or would you rather be commentating over a white label channel such as the official Challenger mode channel to 50,000 viewers?
I think I'd go with Challenger mode because as fun as it is to sit, I mean, I enjoy the community that I've been able to build up, and on a daily basis I get surprised by why the fuck do people come and watch me play video games? I'm not even that good at it, But no, but I love the community that I've been able to build up, and I love having them there. But I've also seen with like Twitch streamers who do rise from their a couple of hundred viewers to thousands, that the personal relationship with that viewer gets lost in the forehead and Pepe hand spams. So no, but I mean, and that's what I love with where I am now. I have enough of a viewing that I feel like I can, like, it makes me want to stream on a daily basis, and I feel like it's very rare that someone comes in that has been to my chat before that I don't know who is. It's also because my brain is a little weird in that way. I remember a lot of strange things, and for some reason, Twitch names is something that I remember really well. So I like to get to know my viewers, and I feel like if there was 5,000 viewers just spamming KEWK or KOK, whatever you say, like in the chat constantly whenever I'm with the shot, which would be all the time, that personal relationship would be gone, and I would more be a broadcast. Like my Twitch channel wouldn't be my channel; it would be just like if it was on Challenger mode, doing stuff. And so no, I would much rather cast a tournament that's big than have it on my own channel.
That makes sense. I mean, I guess for you, from a and we can talk about it from a business perspective here. I guess from a business perspective, for you, the Twitch channel is more what ties you over between events, right? It's kind of, so you preferred being just that, but keeping that personal feel to it.
Exactly, and I mean, I've always said it from day one. Whenever I didn't have any viewers, I've always said to my Twitch chat, I appreciate all your subs and all, like whichever way people feel like supporting my channel, but I am a caster first, streamer second. Like if I am gone for an event for 2 weeks, you have paid for a subscription, and yes, you'll get the emotes that you can then spam at the tournament that I'm playing or casting, but you've paid for a service that you technically will only get half of because I won't be streaming for those 2 weeks. And then people, I feel like people that support my channel are well aware of that. So they'll then instead come whenever they see me on camera, and they'll put up my emotes in that given Twitch chat in a tournament, where it could be Challenger mode, could be anywhere. So they'll support it that way. And then, as you said, I mean, whenever I then come back from that event, they'll come back in my chat the next day and go, "Hey, Toby, that was such a nice event." And then that's like my debrief. I have it with my Twitch chat rather than, I mean, of course, you also have a debrief with the production team, but then I get all their feedback because they know I don't have time to sit and read the chat while I'm casting, right? So they'll be giving me feedback. I say, oh, that was so much fun there, and sometimes people come in and say, oh, Toby, you made a mistake there. That wasn't this was that, and I was like, thank you, thanks for telling me. Now I know not to do that next time. So yeah, I think that's a great platform to do so.
And I guess people also come to you for a little bit of the backstage stories.
Oh yeah,
the
insights,
right?
Sure. Yeah. They'll go, Toby, did you know this, or did you talk to this guy, and how did they react when this happened? And of course, I mean, I'm, as much as I want to share everything with people, I'm also very honest in like knowing when to say stuff and when not to say stuff. At least I've learned that, and I'm never. I mean. And I feel like that's another thing that I can pride myself on. It's not that I want to be someone that people have to come to with their secrets and things. It's just, I mean, don't tell. You gotta have a sense of, what do you say, the situation. Don't say stuff. Don't pass stuff on that you shouldn't. So I'm not gonna sit and spill all the beans on this player that cried all night and sobbed his bed because he lost a tournament. I would never do that. It's just say, yeah, he had a tough day. You know, I mean, there's the different ways to go about it, and I think.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. I don't have to go in depth with that.
There's good ways to show that people are human without humiliating them.
Exactly.
And the other question I have for you, and this is one of the questions that we always ask, is if you were given one tweet that's guaranteed to go viral, what would you tweet?
Oh, you should have. Yeah, I should have known about this one prior. That's gonna require some thinking time. This podcast might go into 2 hours.
Unfortunately,
guaranteed viral tweet.
I can't give you any plotting time, I'm afraid. So it needs to come from the heart.
Okay, it should either just be something stupid. I mean, that's normally how my tweets go. I've not that I've ever had anything go actually viral, but it's not. You know how you always sit down and you think for a half hour on a tweet that is just so 700 IQ, and then it gets like 2 likes. And then the next day when you make a tweet of I don't even know, it could be a glass of water with absolutely no context to it. It gets 500 likes, and I'm like, come on, guys, that was just a random picture. Why do you like that one? Not the one that I wanted you to like. No, so I think if for me a viral tweet would not probably be my own, but a tournament that I'd casted. Like if something really wild happened. Because both from a fame perspective, that would get my face or my you were the guy that casted that crazy thing, right? So if that was combined with me achieving the crowd noise crazy event that popped off and the big stadium dream that I have, like if those two were combined and that tweet was the viral response to it, then I think like that would be the top of the cake.
Okay, I can respect that. I think. And before people make the assumption that this is sort of like an ego thing, I think it's more about the idea of touching a lot of people and being able to move a lot of people with something like this, right?
That alongside with because it's not ooh, they see me, ooh, I'm so famous now. It's just the. For me, I would gladly put in hundreds and thousands of hours into something. I don't need the pat on the back. I don't need the, ooh, Toby, you're so good. What can I do for you? But appreciation is always appreciated. And if I've spent a lot of time perfecting something, and if I give my heart out trying to do something, and then people's response are, wow, this guy is actually like, whenever I'm trying to be personal, I want people to respond in a personal way as well. And if that's by liking things or whatever it may be, then I think that's great. So it's not about me getting famous over it. It's just if I'm personal, then I hope when I show me, I hope people like me. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I always see entertainment and the want to be famous. Within entertainment, I actually always see that as from an altruistic perspective of the more famous I am, the more people see me, the more people I can make happy.
Yeah, exactly. That makes sense. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Anyway, this is about you, so I want to give you a chance to say, any last words, any last pieces of advice that you would like to give our audience.
work with people that you like working with. I think that's another big one. Don't force yourself into a working environment. Take it as your job. If you got a part-time job at a McDonald's, how long would you work there? If your boss was a jerk, your coworkers were jerks, if everyone you worked with were jerks, your working hours were in the middle of the night because you had to do like an NA thingy or whatever. Do what makes you happy, honestly. And again, super duper cliche, but it's just so damn relevant, especially to esports, because before we get famous and before we get a saying, we are the ones that get pushed around. We are the ones that take the jobs that the other people maybe didn't feel like they wanted to do. And only do that if... I was fortunate for those 2 months in the beginning that I had put the money aside to do so, right? So only do it if you feel like you have what it takes to do so. Don't force yourself into like a depression mode where you have to work for people and with people that you don't like working with. I've always just backed out of that. Like I'm too old for cliques and backstabbing and talking around each other's backs. I think that's both pointless and also not very effective in terms of trying to create a good working space for everyone. So do what makes you happy and find people that you like working with. You don't have to go, oh, but this guy has 200,000 followers, I should work with him. If he's a jerk, work with the guy that has 500 and make a thing of it together. Just work with people that make you happy to work with.
I think that's excellent advice. Well, thank you, Toby, for
you.
being on the podcast, and thanks for all your time. Thanks for the advice.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I hope to see you soon at an event near you.
Same likewise. Hopefully, whenever all this Corona is past, we'll get together. That'd be nice.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for listening to Esports Odyssey. If you enjoyed this episode, you can follow Challenger Mode on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, where we announce all new episodes and share podcast-related news. You'll find all of our socials in the show notes. Feel free to email us at podcast@challengermode.com if you have any questions from this or any other episodes, or if you would like to learn more about Challenger Mode and what we do.